a 20 to 30% lift in your total net profit that you are making off of the paid ads you are already running. You run an agency, pay per lead, pay per appointment, or retainer. That's what I'm going to show you guys how to do today. I'll actually show you because the reason I'm running this, I did a masterclass in my community. As you guys can see, this comment is right here. It's not like a screenshot or whatever. Go ahead and click on this, and I'm going to go ahead and load up. As you can see here, the last 12 days. The reason I'm showing you the last 12 days as opposed to the full month, we had an outage, and basically we had 10 days where we just couldn't run any sort of fulfillment. But as you can see here, we did $151,000 in revenue. This is like cash that we collected over that 12-day period. We don't run on weekends, so this is really closer to, with today being a Saturday, there was 2 weekend days and that as well. Really closer to around 9-ish days that we did this. We were averaging, give or take, $15,000 to $20,000 days during the weekdays. So this definitely worked, and we got a good boost because we were doing around $15,000 days before, at the start of this month with that same agency. So it was just kind of proof that this stuff works. I just want to show you kind of transparently what it's able to do. This is one of my done for you management clients. I also gave this within my inner circle community that I run for my consulting clients, and multiple guys just were messaging me that show rate went through the roof. So that's what we're going to be covering. The best show rate strategies, most up-to-date show rate strategies that you can use for cold traffic specifically that right now for agencies and service-based businesses are actually working. These are not going to be like the generic stuff or just like a bunch of fluff. I'm literally going to go through the things that are proven right now to work in the current, right now it's August 1st of 2026. So I'm going to try and make this as specific as possible, as in-depth as possible. Just it's not going to be hyper optimized for a short attention span. So try and stick with me. So when we look at show rate, we want to look at in the order of what matters most. So there's going to be some best practices that I'm going to go through for you guys. But the very, very first thing you want to pay attention to, which can just tank your show rate, and I've seen this from a couple of people for a few varieties of reasons, is negative reviews. So if there's any sort of negative press about you, whether that's people looking things up on Google, whether that's them using large language models like ChatGPT, etc., this can tank your show rate by like over 30%. Right? So huge, 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 threat to your show rate if this is not, paid attention to. So what I want you to do is I want you to look up your company name and then also your name. And primarily what you want to look for are Reddit threads. You want to look for Facebook posts. You want to look for Trustpilot reviews. And then you want to look for other companies' reviews. Now, this one is a unique one. A lot of people don't think about this, but especially in the agency space, people have like very similar agency names in my experience. A lot of them use media or digital, and they'll just kind of have their initials in what they're running. And so what can happen is if you look things up, you'll notice that there are other companies that may have negative reviews, negative feedback, that just have similar search terms. And so if you go on things like ChatGPT, right? If you go on things like Claude, and then even just Google's Gemini, when you Google things, there's going to be like an AI overview. If you look at all of these different platforms, they're pulling from things like Reddit, Facebook, Trustpilot, and then articles and other reviews. And so you want to look for these first, and then you want to actually ask these large language models like Claude and ChatGPT, hey, what are the reviews for this company? Hey, is this company a scam? What can I expect working with this company? You want to go through and ask all of these different questions and find first if there's any sort of negative press. Sometimes it gets things wrong. There could be outdated pricing. There's all these different things that can happen with just like previous reviews. And if you don't pay attention to this stuff, can really, really shoot you in the foot. So this is the first thing you want to pay attention to before we get into things that are going to lift your show rate. You want to figure out, is there anything that's like tanking and nuking your show rate right now? So if there are things that are hurting your show rate, currently, let's say that there's like a negative Reddit thread. This can often be posted not even by the company that you're, or by like customers of your company, but it could just be people that went through your sales process and didn't buy and had a bad experience. This can also be done by competitors, right? If you notice that there's like negative posts put out there, this is pretty common practice by competitors. It's now very difficult to get like threads removed. 4 or 5 months ago, you could remove Reddit threads. Now it's pretty difficult. I think they've added some extra like regulations around it. And the other thing is that the kind of the people at Reddit and these platforms also look out for like positive stuff because they think, oh, is this like fake being pushed by the company? So the best thing you can do is over time, you don't want to just flood it immediately because then that stuff's going to get removed and viewed as like fake reviews. What you want to do is suppression, right? So you want to basically drown these out with positive stuff over a longer period of time. You're able to do that, you're gonna be able to like cancel out what stuff is being pulled, and this can be super valuable. So there's a couple things you can use. There's something called Crowd Reply, which is a service that you can pay for, where you can basically pay to have things put up on your behalf on those platforms, help drown stuff off, help drown stuff out. You also can use something called Brand Push. They can publish like positive articles, a couple $100 per each article you put out. But all of this stuff is going to help sort of get more positive things out there. This is what the large language models pull from. People are outsourcing their thinking to these different platforms. And so that's just something you want to keep in mind. This is the first layer to helping lift your show rate. Make sure that this is in place and things are good here first. Now that we've gotten the big threat out of the way, I want to get into things that are actually going to drive lifts in your show rate. And the first of those is the thank you page. Now, a couple of things you want to keep in mind is who you're attracting on the front end is going to have a massive impact on how everything else performs. So if you're speaking up market, which is what we like to do, speaking to higher level businesses, they normally have intake teams. They're going to be more organized and they're going to be more likely to show up. You just want to make sure there's also congruency between everything. So if you're speaking to an upmarket audience, make sure you speak their language into the things they want all the way through. This more is about messaging, but it is an important factor. Then the first driver, after assuming you're attracting the right people, you're congruent. The biggest lever you can pull is going to be your thank you page or your post booking page. And so this is where they're redirected immediately after they schedule with you. Now, this is an example of a post booking page. This format absolutely crushes for us. So say you're in, one last step to confirm, and we intentionally make this first video very, very short and very easy to consume. A lot of people try and put like a very info dense video at the top. The problem with that is that if someone schedules, right, and they're just, kind of on their phone, they weren't expecting to schedule, they were on Facebook, and then they're like, oh, this is cool, they book. Then they see a 10-minute video right here. What they're going to do is they might have the best intentions of actually watching through it. But if they have 2 or 3 minutes right now, they're like, oh, this is super long. I'll get to this later. And then they just completely forget. And so we intentionally make this very, very short here. So it's not intimidating. Almost everybody will play it. We have a very high play rate. I think we have around like a 80% play rate on the thank you page video, which is quite good. We say important, take 1 minute to watch the video below. It'll make sure you know exactly what to expect on our call. Again, we don't say your call will be canceled or whatever. That stuff doesn't work very well, especially with more sophisticated markets. They just know you're bluffing, right? You're not going to cancel a call that's willing to show. So this is what it looks like. And then we have the short video, and then we have your next steps. And then under that, we're going to have basically FAQs, like your most common questions. Now, this first video, you generally want either a urgency focused video, right? And this is good for down market to get them a reason to act now. If you're going more up market, then we want what we call a due diligence video. And a due diligence video is basically you going through and doing the research for them. And when I say doing the research for them, you want to show them what they would find if they went and Googled you or looked you up on ChatGPT. The reason this is helpful is because regardless if there is good stuff or bad stuff, it's going to make them more confident in what your company actually does and in your service as a whole. And also it gives you an opportunity to frame things. So if there is anything bad out there, or there's just like not a lot of information about you out there, you can actually go through and you can bring up, hey, this was something that was posted by one of our competitors transparently. And with Reddit, they're super strict with removing this stuff. So what I want to show you is I'm actually going to go here, and here are dozens of reviews from actual clients, and here are some of their names. So you can go look them up. You can even reach out to them if you want to confirm the real companies that have actually worked with us. We don't want the, hey, make sure you show up or we'll cancel your call here. That's just a waste of time for that video. You want to be able to basically get a quick question answered. We also introduce them to the fact that, hey, right below this, there are a bunch of our most common questions with super short videos, some of which are relevant to you, some of which may not be relevant to you. Go watch through the ones that feel useful for you so we can save time on the call, right? This is literally just there for you. We don't say we're going to cancel if you don't. It's literally just giving them things that are in their best interest and to their benefit. And that's how we frame it in this video here. Now, another quick note on this, for these most common questions like these FAQ videos, please don't make this just like videos that you want to answer that are like fun to answer, like, why do we only work with one company per area? Like nobody's thinking or asking that question themselves. They want to get their selfish questions answered. And so what you want to do is you got to work with what the customer wants. You got to kind of lean into that. And so we're always going to answer questions that they care about, like how screwed can I get working with you guys? What do you actually count as like a qualified lead or a qualified appointment? Things that they actually care about that they want to know. And then you can get in your sort of spinning your stuff the way you want to and framing everything. You can do that in those videos, but you want to make sure you're answering questions they actually care about. A lot of people will just have terrible like FAQ videos, and it just completely defeats the purpose of them. That's really important. Go through the 5 most common like objections or questions or things that are like mismatched expectations that you get on sales calls, and then make your FAQ videos around those. So then the next biggest lever is going to be our email sequences. And after someone books, you have a couple different things that you want to hit them with. So first off, you want to have reminders, right? So you generally want to have a email reminder and a text reminder. That's very simple. You want to send one as soon as they book so that they can confirm it, get it on their calendar of both. And you want to make them feel pretty human. One of my favorite texts to send is, hey, John, just saw you come in. This sent like 3 minutes after. Just saw you come in for XYZ. Just wrapping a call with one of our customers right now, and then I'll give you a call if you're free. Is this the best number? That gets a really good reply rate, especially if you use something like SendBlue, which I will get into in a minute. But here's what you want in your actual pre-call email sequence outside of your reminders. So reminders, when they come in, 24 hours out, an hour out, and then 5 minutes before is really all you need. Then you want to have this more intense email sequence that's basically going to hammer them before the call. And it looks something like this. So if you're in GHL, you're going to use this as like basically the trigger, which is when they book. You have a 2-minute wait period, and then you're going to send email one. Then you're going to have an hour wait period, email two, 2-hour wait period here, email three, then a 3-hour wait period here, then email four, and then you're just going to send every 4 hours after that between the hours of 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. And what makes up these emails is you want to have questions, right? The main questions that you're going to be getting asked, and you want to get about 10 of those. Objections, about 10 of those. Expectations, about 10 of those. Now you're going to have 30 points, and you want to roll those 30 points into between 12 to 15 emails. Now, we found email sequences is one of the highest leverage things you can do, especially for like the agency space. We just find that they have a very, very high consumption rate, and you want to really put some work into these emails. There's a couple of points I hate about how most people do emails. So one thing is they'll always try and create like a question or some sort of open loop and then send them to a video. The whole point of sending them the emails is so that they can get this. You want to send it in different formats. You have your post booking page, which has video formats. You can also use it's called a deck sales letter. That's worked really, really well for us too. Um, but we also want to be able to give them a way to consume it in a written format. So we want our like our subject line of the emails to be very relevant to what's actually in it, not just like clickbaity. So that the emails they care about that are interesting to them actually open. We don't try and make it be like some people will recommend you do stuff like your refund, accept here, right? And it's just completely irrelevant. Like I'm not trying to force opens. I want the right people to open my emails. But then I'm going to take the question, objection, expectation, those the points that I want to roll into each specific email. I'm going to try and cover roughly 3 points per email, give or take. And then I'm going to frame each email in a specific way. I'm going to answer all of their questions in the email as directly as possible. I'm not going to try and beat around the bush. I'm not going to make it extra long. Visual elements are very helpful. It can hurt deliverability a little bit, but if you obviously warm up your domains properly, that can be huge. And then towards the end of every email, we will be like, hey, if you haven't already, you want to go and check this out. We walk through the entire system here. And it sends them to the thank you page again. Because we're trying to, again, create this sort of feedback cycle where we make it as easy for them to consume the information as in as many different points as possible. Now, another couple of key points. A lot of people will look at their deliverability and or their open rates, and they'll be like, oh, I have like a 40 or 50% open rate. You want to keep in mind that platforms like Apple's Mail app will count every email that it receives as open. And so it's a blended average. So really, if you're getting like a 40% open rate, it means around 1 out of every 5 to every 4 emails is actually being opened and being read. And so you really want to get your open rate closer to ideally around 60%. That would be ideal in our experience. And that's where we find people are coming in and they've actually consumed some of that information from the emails. They come in pretty well educated. You also want to make sure that you have good, healthy email like domains. We'll generally recommend 5 warmed up domains that you're actively sending from. And you want to make sure that they're all similar. If you have things that are too different, what can end up happening is people will be like, think it's like a phishing email or something. So that's also really important. On top of that, you want to pay attention to your phone numbers. So a lot of people will, especially if they're using like a go high level phone number, if you have like person A and they go spam a bunch of people with, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and they go spam a bunch of people, and then they realize the number is spam and they swap out that number doesn't just vanish, right? It's going to get handed to someone else who buys a number in the future, and you inherit that trust score. So TCPA, which is like basically kind of the sending SMS network compliance, it's gotten way more strict recently, and phone numbers get burnt a lot easier. So on top of warmed up sending email domains, another thing I really highly recommend if you can is testing different phone number providers, or in the best case scenario, use something like SendBlue. So SendBlue uses what are called phone farms. It's basically where they have a bunch of different iPhones set up, and then you can basically send messages through those phone numbers. Really, really good service. We use it for a good number of the agencies I help manage, pretty much all of them, honestly. Now there are a couple things to be aware of. You can send about 50 new messages per day with SendBlue, so you can't send like an enormous volume. But the good thing is if you're getting around 50 bookings or less per day, you're completely fine with that. And then anybody that you've messaged like previously, you can continue to message them as much as you want. So SendBlue really helps with like trust. And then if you make those messages feel like more human, more natural, you also have a much, much higher reply rate. So especially if you use that text I gave you a little bit earlier with the, hey, just on a call with a client, I'll hit you back as soon as I'm off. Is this the best number? We'll get a really high reply rate from that as well. If you're only going to do 2 things, by the way, to increase your show rate, other than making sure you don't have like negative reviews, it would be the thank you page and the email sequence. Massive, massive impact. Those 2 alone, like you can leave this video, go implement those, and you'll see a huge lift. It could be anywhere from like 15 to 20% just off those 2 levers. But I'm going to continue to go into other levers that we do that we've also noticed really huge lists from that can be a little bit harder to implement. All right, so the next point is setters or using a triage before the call. Now, this one's a weird one because this actually can have a bigger impact than the first two if it's done well, but it also can have a negative impact if it's executed poorly. So that's why I kind of stuck this in the middle in terms of importance. The first thing you want to pay attention to is you need a really good setter. And so I actually often like to have our closers triage the calls if they can. They don't need to be long calls. They can be very short. It can be 3 to 5 minutes. But keep in mind that the person that's touching base with them immediately is the first touch point with the business. And so if there's a bad first impression, I'd rather have no setter at all than someone who's kind of got like a weird accent, doesn't sound confident, and just has no clue what they're talking about. And so if you have a poor setter who's a bad representation of the business being that first touch point, this can actually undermine your show rate and hurt it. So really, really important. You want to have you want to be pretty hands-on in terms of like catching the pulse of what they're executing. And if you can, where your closer is not like just booked back to back for 10 hours a day, have them do the triage. It's also helpful because it humanizes them. They can make that touch point. But if this person's good, having them call, text, and then do those like sort of short selfie videos where you can actually get to know the person a little bit and they see the face, they hear them talk, that can do really, really well. Now, another point here is a lot of people like they use their setters as sort of this way of like confirming commitment. Hey, just want to make sure you're going to show up. We really, value our salesperson's time. Can you, promise me that you're going to be on time to that call, sitting at a desk, all of this stuff. With a higher level audience, this stuff doesn't work very well. In my experience, we've tried it, and I just think it comes across as like a little bit corny. And so the main goal of our, of that triage is actually education, and you can educate verbally if this person, you got to pay attention to the type of person you're talking to. Some people really like to get their information from a human, not through a video. And so if the setter picks that up, then just spend more time going back and forth and answering questions. But for a lot of people, they just want to get personalized inputs. And so you can pull like specific YouTube videos you have, client interviews with like that were in a similar situation to that customer. For example, and if you're working with roofing companies, another roofing company that was at 3 million a year that got to 5 million a year working with you, that'd be a great personalized result. Be like, hey, this is a client that's very similar, kind of reminded me of you. Would you watch this if I send it to you? Right? They're going to consume that. Also, if they have very specific questions, they're like, man, I've tried all these different lead services before. You've got a video specifically that talks about how you you differentiate and you qualify your leads more than another company, another personalized input you can send to them. And those personalized inputs are super powerful. I call this forced consumption. I have our guys send it while on the phone as opposed to after hopping off the phone. I think that's really powerful because they can literally make the connection point. They're like, hey, they're on the phone. Hey, can you text me back so I can send you a link? You have to do that with iMessage anyways. So you have the person text, hey, what's up? Right, so there's now like a little bit of commitment there. Then they send over the link. Hey, try click on that link. Sometimes it's a little weird. It doesn't open. Now they've got the link opened on their phone. It's like, hey, if you've got a couple minutes now, just go ahead and watch through that real quick. I think you're going to find it pretty valuable. You can just 2x speed it. And then they hop off the phone. Higher chance that person actually goes through it. Even if they don't, it's now open in their browser. If they open their browser for something else, just pops up and loads. Higher likelihood they actually go through it. Another thing to keep in mind is everyone thinks of when they think of like setters, oh, they're going to call them. Calling is the ideal, right? But then you can also have you can also just go back and forth via text. The text connection rate is super high. I've also found less and less and less people now just pick up random phone calls. And even if they know that person, like I even know for myself, I'm very busy. And so it's like even if I have like technically 5 minutes, I don't want to take a 5 minute phone call because I don't know how long it'll go. I have all these other tasks I'm trying to get done. So I'm much better at replying through text. So kind of same thing here. If they don't pick up the phone, then you don't want to just have the setters. It's similar to the emails where it's like you send an email that forces them to a YouTube video. It's like just answer the questions through the emails. Same thing here. If they've got questions or you want to personalize stuff for them and they're responding through text, don't try and force them onto a call. Send them stuff through text. Connection rate's high, and you're able to get a lot of value to them. So that does really, really well. Again, keep in mind though, if this is executed poorly by a low quality setter, or nothing's personalized, or they just come across robotic, it can actually just negatively affect your show rate pretty significantly. So execution is important here. If you can execute well on this one's honestly equivalent in terms of how much it can help show rate and help close rate, especially because you're making them consume that information as those other 2 points. And then the last point I'll kind of add in here is just retargeting on platforms. So if you're using things like Meta, TikTok, YouTube, you can retarget people across all of those platforms with short form and long form content, and then also organic retargeting. So another thing that gives a big lift, if you're running paid ads, you're gonna have those paid ads people a lot of times just follow the page, right? And so if you're posting organically, even if you have a low amount of organic reach, if you can post like one video per day that may not be at all optimized to go viral, but you're already running ads, people are likely to be retargeted by the organic content, even if they found it through an ad and they just engaged a little bit with the page. And so you can do organic retargeting. That's the simplest version of this, and kind of start to stack up your page with organic videos. And then you can set up actual retargeting, like hammer them if you watch Jeremy Haynes and you understand his strategies. Essentially, that structure. I'll give a really quick breakdown of how that works. You're essentially retargeting people that have booked or hit your landing page with a bunch of different videos. You're going to have one ad set per ad within a campaign. You're going to have a 3-second view exclusion within that ad set. So that way they get cycled through all these different videos that essentially answer all of the questions, objections, and expectations that you kind of mapped out and also answered in your emails. Keep in mind, it sounds a little bit redundant. You're answering the same things on all these different platforms. The point is that people are not going to consume all of it, right? We're putting a bunch of stuff in front of them in all these different formats. Someone calling, someone texting, reminders, emails, the post booking video, the retargeting videos, organic, right? So that across everything, they have the highest likelihood of consuming as much as possible. And as long as it's very congruent, then it's going to help them be like, hey, this is exactly what I was kind of expecting. It sounds like this is answering a lot of the things I clicked on the ad in the first place for. Okay, yeah, like I'm going to make sure I show up to this because it's going to answer my questions. It's answering the things that I need. It's relevant to me. Might as well get this sorted instead of just continuing to look, right? It's also going to keep you top of mind. They keep seeing your face, like, oh yeah, I got that call at 2 p.m. tomorrow. Oh yeah, I got that call at 2 p.m. tomorrow, as well as also having them consume it. So it helps show rate and also intent and close rate when they actually get in front of you. Now, those are the biggest levers I've seen across everything work extremely well. There's some very specific things to different markets I've seen perform really well. So in real estate specifically, if you promise some sort of like asset, like something valuable to them, this can be like some sort of calculator or some sort of small training on the topic that they care about, and you can promise that to them if they show up. I found that works really well. Now, in some markets, this has very little impact. You also want to make it feel genuinely valuable and not just like another like sort of info product, another info asset. So you need to make sure that the way it's positioned actually is something that they want. Ideally, something they've seen before, or that you've actually sold in the past. They'll get access to if they, obviously show up. Where they're like, okay, this isn't just like, nobody cares if you're going to send them like a YouTube video. If they show up to the calls, like they can go get that themselves, right? And then the last thing is we'll sometimes have what we call a pre-call doc, which is a little bit different than the thank you page. This will go like super in depth on like more technical stuff, right? So we may list out like 20 different companies in different states we've worked with, how many appointments we sent them, how many they converted, how much those were worth, and just have all the stats laid out. So it's like very numbers oriented. I found that works really good with sort of upmarket people. We also might link on that sort of like pre-call doc, testimonials. We're trying to basically organize a bunch of information where, especially if people are likely to do a lot of research in advance of the call, and we know that, we kind of put it all in one place for them, where it's like linked, where it doesn't feel biased, but it's like, hey, you can go find this here, you can go find this here, you can go find this here, you can reach out to those companies, just making it as easy for them as possible, so you also can direct them to the things that you want them to consume, essentially. Um, those also can perform well. They just, not all markets react well to them. And so you kind of have to, those are more things you have to sort of test. But those core things that I gave you between the email sequences, the post booking, how to run that, the actual setter, practices in terms of warming them up, and then the basic retargeting on platform with organic and paid. If you implement all of those things, I found they freaking crush. And you can get, depending on what your stuff looks like right now, up to like a 35% boost if things are pretty bad currently. So I hope you got a ton of value from that. If you want to get more stuff like this every weekend, work with me one-on-one, have a lot of this stuff completely done for you, there's a link below. You can schedule to speak with me. I have a inner circle group community of basically mostly agency owners, a couple guys that do some different things like funding and stuff. But I go very in depth with them. It's all one-on-one and then like very, very small group. I run master classes most weekends that are, this is basically like 10% of what we'd actually cover in that master class for show rate, for example. And then you also have the opportunity to, in the future, work with me one-to-one. The one I showed you at the beginning, one of my done for you clients very recently, they came to me doing around $80,000 to $90,000 a month. And now they're probably going to be crossing 500,000 and probably 1 million before the end of the year. We'll see. Obviously, it's just projection, but if you also wanted to work with me in that capacity, you can schedule below. If you're a bigger agency, I can help you scale. I've got a lot of assets, a lot of data I use, and then I've got access to. So other than that, hope you guys got a ton of value. I'm going to link another video here that may be relevant to you. So if you want to watch that, go click that. And without further ado, I will let you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Take care. Cheers.